Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Right here with you on the 981. Let me once again introduce all of you locked on for the very first time to the program Healthy Relationships. Welcome once again to all our listeners who are usually on with us for the program. And of course, I've got our trainer and counselor Petreece Cuffie with me today. So let me send her some greetings. Good afternoon to you, Petreece. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Tiffany. I am good, thank God, and good afternoon to all our viewers, all our listeners. Yes.
All right, so at this time you take it over and we are listening on.
Okay, great. So glad to be here again on this Monday afternoon, and God's continued blessings to all of you as you continue to listen, to view, to put things into practice. I really pray that what I am sharing is a blessing, and I thank God for those of you all who reach out to me from time to time to tell me that it is making an impact, really an encouragement, and I really thank God for that, for this opportunity. So, of course, I'm continuing with this very, very important series, and I think it's something I'll have to be doing from time to time, characteristics of healthy marriages. And I'm looking at number 8 today. So it's 10 of them, and I'm at 8, but there's a little hook there. Number 8 is conflict resolution and empathy, but actually this is such a big topic that I probably would have to do it in about 5 or 6 programs. So this is part 1 of 5 or 6 programs. So number 8, conflict resolution and empathy. And again, must remind you of what those 10 characteristics of healthy marriages are. And they are: 1, commitment; 2, fidelity; 3, acceptance of one another; 4, trust; 5, emotional intimacy, love and affection; 6, shared activities and friendship; 7, communication; 8, which is what I'll be dealing with today, starting today, conflict resolution and empathy; 9, intentionality; and 10, a growth mindset. So number 8, which is conflict resolution. And now all of us, we've lived long enough to know that conflict is normal and it happens in all relationships. So there isn't a relationship if it lasts long enough and we interacted enough that there wouldn't be some kind of conflict. However, and we're talking about marriages here, if there's too much criticizing, demanding, name calling, holding grudges, and similar negativity, the relationship will suffer. Although this is not always true, men and women tend to have different styles of interacting and handling conflict. Women may be more likely to raise concerns and problems and want to talk about what they are feeling, and men may be more likely to avoid conflict and downplay the strong emotions that they feel inside. And I'll speak to this a little later. In healthy marriages, couples listen to each other carefully, especially when there is a conflict. They also avoid negative thinking patterns, such as thinking the worst about your spouse or jumping to a negative conclusion. So the first conclusion they come to is that she don't care, or he doesn't care, right? They use problem solving, talk about past conflicts, acknowledge mistakes, apologize, forgive, and learn from their mistakes, right? So this is what we're talking about when we're looking at conflict resolution. Now, we all know that conflict is inevitable, conflict will happen, and conflict happens in every marriage. Some conflicts are resolved, but some conflicts are managed. So not all conflicts are resolved, right? Most conflicts are resolved, but some conflicts are just managed and not resolved, right? And what do I mean by this? There are things about you and things about your spouse that could always cause conflict if we let it. But we've learned how to handle it with a dose of acceptance, laughter, ignoring. Ignoring is a superpower, right? Ignoring, compassion, patience, and sometimes just taking your own action. Okay, I'm not going to be fighting up about this anymore. I'll just do what I need to do, right? And I have a little example, of course, of my marriage, and it's probably a little bit silly, but I couldn't think of any other example at the time. And this is something from the past where my husband and I, we have separate workspaces at home where we, deal with our business. And many times when I would have left my workspace to go to bed, I would forget to turn off the lights. And part of me wonder if it's a remnant from when I grew up. It was a family of origin. My father was the one who closed doors, turned off lights, closed windows. None of us did any of those things. So I always wonder if it was a remnant of that. But the strange thing is that I am the person who's always trying to save electricity. So I'm the person who's always saying, why did you leave that light on? Why did you leave the fan on? Why? So it really makes no sense. So in the past, my husband, he would get a little bit annoyed that I left and didn't just turn off the light. And, a little annoyed with me because normally what will happen is that he would have to leave his office, to turn off the lights. Because, of course, I'm in my bed, right, cozy and tired. But as time went by, when I forgot, because, I remember sometimes when I forgot, he would simply turn off the light and I'd hear nothing about it. So that's a conflict being managed. So he realized, okay, she's probably trying, and this is not worth it in the scheme of things. So you know what? If she leaves it on, I could simply go and turn it off. That's it. So that conflict was managed, right? And I suppose it's like that, that age-old story of the toilet seat up, where in some marriages that seemed to cause, well, I won't say serious conflict, but conflict. And for me, I would say if men have to raise it up to the toilet seat to use it, well, then we could put it down to use it. So that'll be my reasoning for it to manage that conflict, for it not to cause a conflict. So if he does leave the toilet seat up, no biggie. I'll just put it down. And I'm going to turn that into something to spoil the moment or the next 2 hours or the day. So that's what I'm talking about, managing conflict. So where we don't make everything into an issue, we can look at, okay, accept certain things. This is how I can look at it differently. This is what I can do so that the situation may not change, but it no longer causes a conflict because I'm choosing to deal with it differently. And I know that you're getting the idea as you're listening, as you're viewing. Now, I will be sharing 3 sets of information when it comes to dealing with conflict. And the first is, which I'll be sharing today, is on timeout. And the second will be on empathy. And the third is a method developed by Dr. Gottman as he studied conflicts with couples, right? So this is like some scientific studies here. Now, conflict, as unpleasant as they can be, can teach us so much about ourselves, our spouses, our needs, and our desires. Using the method that I am about to share has helped my husband and I to understand and appreciate each other in deeper levels than I would have thought with something so basic. So even though I'm saying this is basic, it could be difficult for many of us because of how we process and think about things. Now, this is important, before I go into this tool of timeout. It is important that both husband and wife develop the culture of dealing with issues, dealing with conflicts in their marriage. It's important for you all to have rules. I remember listening sometime to Men Talk, and Professor was sharing that him and his wife, Nicole, that they had certain ground rules of things to do and not to do when there is conflict or when persons are upset. Now, this is not easy for many of us, right? And it is definitely not comfortable. because as humans, we generally don't like to be wrong. We hate, to be wrong. It's difficult for some of us to accept influence. And, we could be very selfish, right? But to have a healthy marriage, the willingness to resolve conflict is an important attitude. We must have a willingness to resolve conflict. As I said, some conflicts we manage, but a lot of conflicts we will need to resolve. Some of us come from homes where it seems like if we ignored or we did not speak about the problem, it will go away. So we just ignore, we didn't speak, 2-3 days pass, and we start interacting with each other as if nothing happened, right? Or some homes where when trying to deal with conflict, it almost seems like things just got worse. People just got upset, more angry. So we learn it better. Don't say anything. Don't say anything about this. Just leave it. Don't bother to say anything about it. Or some of us could have come from homes where all expressions of anger were aggressive and explosive. So anytime we see your partner getting angry or you feel like you're getting angry, you just want to shut down, you don't want to deal with anything. So that now we're in our marriages and we are afraid or we just don't know how to face issues and work them through. And of course, this does not work if a goal for a healthy marriage is what we want. It just breaks down trust when we're not dealing with conflicts in our marriages. It actually breaks down trust. And it allows, remember when we spoke about trust in marriage, those trust termites to continue to eat away at our relationship. So this is very important. It's important that we have a mindset that we're going to address conflicts in our marriages, both as husbands and wives. All right. So one of the ways to deal with conflicts is to use the tool of a timeout. And this is not for a little child go and sit down in the naughty corner sort of thing. A timeout is also not silent treatment or to avoid the issue. Right. So sometimes we start talking and we can start talking calmly. We could be having a wonderful day. And we start talking about an issue. Or we just doing something and a conflict arises because of something that was said or done. What was said or done could seem small, right? Or it could be not so small, and we are trying to resolve the conflict. But both of us, or one of us, starts to get angry, and you could feel the anger rising. What should we do? Stay and raise our voices and eventually say hurtful things to each other? No, we need a timeout. We need to understand that once we get angry, we are not processing things properly. And we could say and do things that are very harmful to our spouse and to our marriage. And this is not a you thing. This is a human being thing. So we get angry, stress hormones flood our brain, and it affects our ability to process and to think clearly and to moderate our behavior, to control our behavior the way we would normally do it if we are calm. So a timeout is a space given to both persons to change their state of mind, to create a space to calm down, to get those stress hormones in your brain, for those levels to lower, and to reflect on what to do next. It is not to avoid the argument or the conflict or dealing with the issue. It is not to control the argument. It is not silent treatment. Time out is not, we are not coming back to deal with this. So Petreece, how could we do, if we do time out, he'll never come back. She will never come back. No, you must agree about how a timeout is supposed to be done. Both persons. So as I said earlier, it's important as a couple, when we are calm, to sit and talk about what our culture would be like in terms of dealing with issues, problems, conflict, talking them through in our marriage. What would be our ground rules for that. Timeout was one of ours in terms of my husband and I. So the first thing we need to do is to decide that timeouts are okay. As a couple, you need to decide beforehand that you are not going to be doing the shouting matches or one person going on and on and on and on, but that you're both going to take a timeout when the argument or discussion is driven by the emotion of anger. So once one or both of you all are feeling upset, and most of us have signals in our bodies that tell us when we are upset. So know what those things are. Some people say, Petreece, start to feel a pain in my neck, or they start to hold their fists, or they feel like their lips trembling. Some people feel like their brain shutting down. Know for you what it feels like when you are getting upset. And once you know that, you are able to say, gently, I need a timeout. Not you need a timeout, Or you may see your partner getting upset, but you don't say you need a timeout. You say we need a timeout. So these are things we must agree on beforehand, right? And because both my husband and I, our love languages are words of affirmation, so tone of voice, how things are said, affects both of us. We knew that raising voice, quarreling, rah, 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 those kind of things would not work in our marriage. So this actually was really, really an important tool for us, taking our time out. Now, please get rid of the myth that we must deal with the conflict right now, or we would not deal with it. That's why you need to decide how we're going to do this. So I know of spouses who have blocked people from leaving the room. A person was trying to get the space because he or she didn't know I'm getting upset and I can say and do things that are harmful. So I'm trying to move away. I'm trying to leave the space, and the other spouse is saying, no, we have to talk about it now. But the other person, no, I can't deal with this now. I know what is happening in my mind, right? We can't do that. Right? Most, if not all of us, cannot process information properly when we are angry. So continuing to engage and to speak when you are upset is actually not productive. It is useless. It is unhealthy, right? Some couples actually end up in verbal or physical abuse as a result of not taking a time out. Right? So the thing about it is we don't always need a timeout. A timeout, we decide that we are taking a timeout if one or both of us is very upset, is angry. So you know what you're feeling in your body. You know what happened with your brain, and either one of you or both of you all say we need a timeout. If you all need a different word, because a timeout can be triggering for some people, it could feel like abandonment, right? Find another word to indicate that we need to stop speaking and we need to move away from each other. We need to give each other some space to cool down and to reflect before we re-engage. Again, timeout is not silent treatment. Timeout is not, we're not coming back to deal with this issue. So first of all, we need to decide that timeouts are okay. Timeouts are okay. Secondly, we need to decide on how long timeout should be. Some of us do not need a lot of time to cool down and reflect. An hour may be sufficient, right? Some people, 45 minutes may be sufficient, but some of us need more time. So some people might need 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, right? And as you all discuss this, you can either go with the longer time or you can find somewhere in the middle there, right? Decide on something in between. However, longer than 24 hours would seem more like avoidance than a timeout. So you don't want a timeout to be 24 hours, right? And I'll speak to some little issues that could come up there, right? Number 3, when you are getting angry, say that you need a timeout. And as I said, if that word is triggering for some of us because it feels like abandonment, find another word, find something else to say. abracadabra, something else, say something else, but we understand what it means. So you are discussing, and one or both of you start to get angry, or at least one of you need to say, I need a timeout, or we need a timeout. You don't say you need a timeout. It's either I need it, right, because I know what is happening in me, or we need it because I may see what is happening in you, or I can see what is happening with both of us. So we need a timeout. And once you hear this, you stop engaging. You stop speaking about that issue. You move apart if you can. If you cannot move apart, for example, if you're in a vehicle, you're not going to open the door and roll onto the highway, right? Or roll onto the road. You stop speaking for a while, right? You just stop speaking. And this is not the time to be touching the person and saying things, because normally if people are upset, we generally don't want to be touched, right? Or sometimes we may need to talk about something, but we're not speaking about what we're upset about. Therefore, we have changed the subject and we're talking about this thing that needs to be said now, right? If you're speaking on the phone, you should hang up, but not abruptly, right? You hang up after one or both of you all say, I need a timeout, or we need a timeout. So we don't just, and we're all getting upset and I just hang up the phone, or just, yeah, but we say, do we still say hang up the phone? Well, you know, press the, right, on the phone, hang up the phone, yeah, you still say that. Or there's something I need to tell you, so we stop talking about that. I tell you what I need to tell you, and we disconnect the call, okay? So we don't just, I feel upset and hang up on the person. No, we communicate that a timeout is needed. And once one of us, both of us hear that, we know it means we need to stop speaking about this issue because it is not doing anything productive. No, so we've called a timeout. We've said, I need a timeout, or we need a timeout. So we've stopped talking about the issue. The fourth thing we need to do is to calm down and reflect on a new course of action. Calm down and reflect on a new course of action. Once you leave, use the time away to calm yourself. Do something relaxing, whatever. Play with the children, wash the car, take a shower, pray, read, listen to some music, take a walk, exercise, right? Just focus on relaxing as you take some deep breaths and let go of any angry and self-righteous thoughts. Now, some of us take a while to calm down because we ruminate. And this is something I did. And I would find myself staying upset for a while simply because I'm going over the situation over and over in my mind. I'm ruminating. That is not healthy, right? So what I did and what I would recommend that you do is to do some deep breathing, do some box breathing. It's something I shared. If you want, you can go on my Facebook page, my Facebook group. You would see why I explain what box breathing is, or deep breathing, so that you can calm down, you can get the chemicals in your brain to start being reduced. So once we start going over and over and over and thinking, we just stay upset. So do not ruminate. So we stop speaking, do something to calm down. Read some deep breathing to calm down. Stop thinking about the situation over and over and over and thinking, oh gosh, he's so stupid. She's something wrong with her. She's mad. These things that we think when we get upset, right? And once you are calmer, use the time to yourself to reflect on why you were feeling angry or upset, right? So it's not just about calming down. We need to reflect during this time. Remember that anger is a secondary emotion. It's a protective emotion. So you want to look at what is below this anger. What am I really feeling below this anger? The more vulnerable emotions, the primary emotions. So what can I learn from my emotions? What might I be feeling underneath this anger? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling disrespected? Am I feeling unsupported, afraid, misunderstood, taken for granted, used, unloved? Like my opinion doesn't matter, undefended. All of these things can cause you to feel angry. All of these things are primary emotions, your more vulnerable emotions that you would want to share with your spouse when you go back to speak, right? Why? Why am I feeling this way? Can you try to express those softer, more vulnerable feelings and the relationship needs behind them, right? Or even the desires behind them to your spouse when you go back. But you don't only want to think about what you are feeling and what is that anger related to, but you also want to think about what your spouse is feeling, right? Try to see the situation through his or her eyes. And we'll talk about this more when we speak about empathy, right? What is your spouse feeling? Every human being has feelings, right? What do you know about your spouse's past, family of origin, your history as a couple that will help you to understand how he or she is feeling? So all of this is a part of reflecting. All of these things you're asking. Think about how you may have impacted your partner. What was your tone like? All of this is part of reflecting. Were you accusing? Were you judgmental in what you would have said and how you would have said what you said? Could you have unwittingly triggered your partner to be defensive because of your tone or the way in which you said things? All of this. So it's not just about calming down. It is about reflecting on what you are feeling, what your spouse is feeling, what is really happening here. So this is not a tool to avoid. This is not a tool for silent treatment. This is a tool so that I can understand myself better, my partner better, and the relationship needs better, right? How did your own actions help to perpetuate the conflict or the argument, right? Consider you're thinking, well, this is part of reflecting. You're thinking about what you might do differently when you return. So we need to come back. So timeout is not you in a corner. It's not that, right? And as I said, if that word timeout is triggering to you, find another word, but we understand what it means. It is a space to cool down and to reflect and eventually return to deal with the matter in a much clearer way because we have done some reflection, right? So it's very important that you reflect during the timeout. You cannot skip this and just decide to go back at it from where you left off. So I'm feeling calmer now, so let's talk. No, we need to reflect. So the fifth thing is, I hope I number these things right. Right? We return and repair. Although I think this is what I was calling fourth was the third, and this is probably now the fourth. So you want to return and repair. So remember, the conflict is not over. The conflict is not resolved. Once your heart rate has returned to normal and you have a better sense of what caused you to feel angry and what else you're feeling besides angry, so we reflected, it is important to return and talk things through. No matter how calm you feel after, it is important, right, to have an objective discussion about why you both reacted the way you did, what you are understanding about each other in terms of how you are feeling, and what can we do to deal with this matter in a healthy way, or even to avoid such hostilities in the future, right? What can you do so that this situation would not or is less likely to happen? Again, we want to discuss this. You must realize, right, that it's not just about, okay, we calm now, so let's just move on with life. No, there was an issue, we need to return and we need to discuss the issue. You may also realize that what you were fighting about was not even the real issue, and shift focus to your discussion on the more central issues. So a lot of times when you reflect, you start to realize, but wait, you know what the real thing is here? And you're able to share that. It's not what you said there, but remember what happened. This is the third time so and so happened. And it reminds me of, and you're able to deal with what is the most central issue. It is also important to repair any damage that was done. So we may have, we would have done things that would have caused the conflict, would have done things that would have caused us to be angry or upset. So it's important to apologize, to repair any damage for the hurts caused, and a sincere apology is very important when we're talking about dealing with conflict. So in the few minutes I have left, I'm wondering if I can share on this whole thing with sincere apology, which I've shared on a number of times. And we know the work of Dr. Gary Chapman and Dr. Jennifer Thomas, and they co-authored the book on the 5 languages of apology, which speaks to the whole concept of what is a sincere apology. And what may be a sincere apology sound like a sincere apology to you may not sound like a sincere apology for me, because we hear apologies differently, right? There are 5 apology languages. And the first apology language is I am sorry. And you're saying I am sorry, and you're saying I am sorry that my actions would have caused you to feel X, Y, or Z. So you're not just saying I'm sorry. You are saying, and this apology language is expressing regret. So you say I'm sorry, and I'm sorry because my behavior would have caused you to feel X, Y, and Z. The second apology language is accepting responsibility. This is apology language 2. And this is saying I was wrong. And you're naming your mistake and you're accepting fault. So you're saying I was wrong because I did so, and this is what it would have caused. So you're accepting responsibility. Now, you're not saying you were right, which is much easier to say. You're saying I am wrong, or I was wrong for doing so and so. So you have number 1, expressing regret. Number 2, accepting responsibility, apology languages. Number 3, making restitution or amends. And this is what can I do to make it right? So a person who has this as their apology language wants a person to do something for that apology to sound sincere. So I wash up wares, or I take your car to wash, or I bring you flowers, or I make your favorite meal, right? And actually a lot of us Caribbean parents, we don't, I've seen this where they wouldn't say I'm sorry, but they will cook something for the child and say, look, I make this, I know you like it, and they give it to them to eat. And the child know, okay, mommy sorry, or daddy sorry. No, they didn't say I am sorry or I was wrong, They did this one, which is making restitution or amends. So it really is, I can't believe that you love me and you did this. You have to do something to help to pick me back up off my feet. And that sounds like a sincere apology to them. What you do, to make amends for what the hurt that you would have caused. An apology language 4 is what we call genuinely repenting. So I'll try not to do that again. And this really is engaging in problem solving. So you're not making excuses, but you're saying, this is what I will do so that this would not happen again. So that sounds like a sincere apology. This is what I'll do so this would not happen again. And then apology language 5 is requesting forgiveness. So will you please forgive me? So you ask any person, will you please forgive me? And being patient in seeking forgiveness and reconciliation, right? Because of course that could take some time. Now, it's important for you to know, and I'm not saying you need to know this for everybody. So in your marriage, it's important to know what is your spouse's apology language and what is your apology language. So in my situation, right? So I know my husband very well, so I knew every time he apologized, but I am sorry, he truly meant it, but it never sounded sincere to me because I am sorry, which is the apology language one, which is expressing regret, is not my apology language. So my apology language is 2 and 4. 2 is accepting responsibility. I was wrong. And 4 is this is what I would do so it would not happen again, which is genuinely repenting. So I would apologize to him like that. I would say, babes, I was wrong. And I was wrong because, and this is what I'll do so it wouldn't happen again. But he would apologize to me and say, honey, I am sorry because I know this would have caused you to feel X, Y, and Z. I know it's right, but Denise something was still off with it. And when I discovered this information, that's when I realized that's why it's off. He's apologizing in his apology language, which is what sounds like a sincere apology to him. And I was apologizing in the apology language that sounds like a sincere apology to me. So we had to change it up. So if I do something that hurts him, all I need to do is to say, honey, I am sorry. And I'm sorry because this would have made you feel disrespected and taken for granted. That's what I need to say. But he needs to say, I was wrong. I was wrong because so. And this is what I'll do so it won't happen again. So he say I get off easy because he have the harder thing to do. And to be honest, sometimes I still apologize in my apology language, you know. So it's important to know, even as we deal with conflict, what sounds like a sincere apology to your spouse, because you may be very sincere, but it doesn't sound like that. So I knew my husband was sincere, but I must admit, when he apologized in my apology language, it made things easier. And one of the things about loving each other is making those changes for the object of our love. Making those changes for the object of our love. As I say to people, we don't love God how we want to. We love God how God says to love him. And he says, if you love me, keep my commandments. And part of even loving our spouses is understanding what they need and being willing to do it by God's grace. So, of course, I always have more to share, but I'm looking at the time. So I'll close here for today. Remember that tool of timeout. It's not a control. It's not for silent treatment, right? But it is so that we don't end up saying and doing things that are harmful to each other and to our marriage. And also remember, we may have different apology languages. So try to find out what sounds like a sincere apology to your husband or to your wife and use it. Tiffany?
Thank you so very much, Petreece. Thank you for that today. I was looking at checking out the stream to see if I saw any messages coming in there, also the WhatsApp. But we've got 2 minutes on the clock, so just in case, we've got the phone lines open as per usual. If you would like to call in and you have a question for Petreece, please free to do so at this time. 622-1981, 628-1981. We'll give you the opportunity to call in and ask your question. In the meantime, let me just get that number for Petreece, WhatsApp number. If you wish to send a WhatsApp message only, the number is 329-7383, 329-7383. Feel free to reach out to her at that number and she's going to respond to you. All right, so let me see who's there. Nobody's there as yet, Petreece. But guys, in the meantime, let me just remind you, you can follow Petreece at her Instagram page at PetreeceCuffie1470. You can also check out her website at cuffieconsultant.com, and also you can also check her out on Facebook at Petreece Cuffie and Associates, equipping people for life. So Petreece, thank you so very much as per usual. God bless you. We appreciate your labor of love and all that you do here, and you continue to just give us that information that we can not only listen to you, but we can apply it, right? So
Yes.
Thank you so very much for that, and
You're welcome. And
going to
God
connect
bless.
with you next week, God's spare. Have a blessed and
Okay.
wonderful day, and until we
You
meet
too.
again, God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so very much.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.